Hey everybody, welcome to our series Week in Review. This is for the week of November 19th. What we're going to go over here is a couple of lifters. We've got Janice Sakamoto. She's kind of starting her general prep phase, kind of changing the program a little bit so we can work more on technique going forward to her first competition next year. Probably going to be the American Open Series 1 is my guess. We may not, we're not 100% sure on that for her, but that's basically what we're training for. And then you'll see Alyssa Allen and Alyssa Ritchie, both of which are going to the American Open Finals to compete. Alyssa Allen's competing as our 81 kilo lifter. She's going to go over some pretty heavy singles and just generally heavy training in general. And then Alyssa Ritchie, she's training. She's in kind of a high volume phase. We would say we're training through the American Open Finals. We're basically just using that as a meet. I would almost use the term a throwaway meet, where we're going to go in and take some really large, bold openers and bold attempts to try and bump her score up. My thought process in that for her is that, you know, she's in good shape. She gets into good shape quickly, and she can go to a competition and perform really well with no pressure. It doesn't matter if we do well and we still have another meet later on to qualify for Pan Ams. The upside there is that if she does well here, we get a great Roby score in, and we don't have to fight for that spot as hard coming up. And if we get a big enough score and do really well, she could really just focus on training all the way through right to Pan Ams, which I think would be a more beneficial situation than having a meet, you know, a few months before Pan Ams. This gives her a chance to really do some good stuff, assuming it works out well. The risk there and the downside is that she'd have to cut weight one more time in a relatively short period of time. So we'll see how that goes. I suspect she'll do well because she's a very good, good at the weight cuts. She has her diet under control. She didn't do anything crazy. So we'll see. And I'll take a look at the training and hope you enjoy. So we can see here our first athlete is Janice. And Janice's program changed kind of dramatically these last couple weeks. We've done a lot more work now where we're doing percentage-based training and some focus more on the actual lifts. So she has some snatches there, pretty light, and then here she's doing some cleans off the blocks with the bar starting in front of her kneecap, and then some clean pulls from the same position. The main reason we do this for her is, one, it forces her to extend her legs at the start of the pull and bring the bar in close to her thighs. And then in addition to that, it's a little bit easier on her back. A little bit less stress there, so she can focus on the legs more. These are some squats she was doing. Nothing super heavy, but you can see some of the technical errors we're working at. Keeping the knees over the toes. See how as she comes up, the knees kind of shift back with a little bit of fatigue. That's something we try to work on a lot. She does have front squats. This is the end of the week for her this day. She had some kind of moderate weight front squats. What we've done with Janice and some of the other girls too is just change the program to base their squats on their lifts as a percentage, because they already possess enough leg strength or they don't possess a lot of leg strength. We want to keep those things a little more specific. She also finished up with some pretty easy snatch grip RDLs. Here's Alyssa Allen. She's training for the American Open. She's competing in a couple weeks. So a lot of what she's doing now is mostly just the heavy peaking work. She's focusing here on clean and jerks. She had a pretty solid week overall. The last block before this peak, she had snatched around 100 kilos, which is really good, and put up some solid clean and jerks in the 120 range, a little over 120. She'll be competing as an 81 there. You can see here she does a pause on the front, or on the first rep of her front squats. The main reason I put the pause in there for them is that it just reinforces taking the weight down a little bit, so you can't overdo it. In addition to the pause stopping you on the weight, it also benefits you because it teaches you how to push with your legs better out of the hole. Again, this was a light day here. This is just some power variations. We like to use the power variations on light days and peaking because it allows you to still go heavy without the load being really big. Now, some of these are probably a little bit, we could say, rough, where she's stepping forward to get to them. That's probably because she's cutting the pull a little bit. One thing that would be better when you're doing powers is to focus on really extending and getting the most out of the pull. Here's her heavy day at the end of the week, snatching up to some top singles. and then clean and jerking some top singles. What I really try to, enforce in the lifting is that on those heavy days, you're not missing. A lot of misses just don't add up to success on the platform, and it's really important when you're getting that close to a meet to focus on that stuff. She's also got some push presses here. Now, strength work and things like push presses for the athletes in a peaking phase really just come into play when it comes to maintaining that strength stimulus. Here's Alyssa Ritchie. This is early in the week here. What she's got going on is a lot of training volume. We've reduced her average intensity from the World's Prep to now just a little bit of preparation for AO finals. She's got a lot of volume in the clean and jerk and the snatch. Most sets are going to be high repetition sets. So here she has 3 cleans. We can see her doing those, plus jerks. And the big thing for her that we've worked on with the clean technically is to really reinforce receiving the bar and riding it down into a bounce, a good rebound. She had a tendency to try and power them before and catch them as high as she could and then resist it. Now that rebound you could see on those cleans is really nice. It's going to pay off big time for her in a big clean and jerk. Then there's a good exercise I really like. I'm a huge fan of these no hook, no feet snatches. It just forces a lifter to pull more straight and focus on the vertical height of the bar and the vertical pulling action using your legs and your arms and upper body rather than just relying on the power from your hips. You can see here she's doing a pretty good job. This is only like the first or second time she's ever really done this. So I'm pretty happy with the way they look. She's doing a good job keeping her feet flat, a good job extending at the top. The one thing I would probably have her do is hold on to the bar for all 3 reps. But because this is a technical day, it's a Tuesday workout, it's kind of an easy session for her. I'm not super concerned with pushing that density and that speed up very much between reps. It's fine that she's taking a little bit more time. You can see she's a little bit tired there. Then she had some pulls here. Now these are a good example of kind of where I kind of complained about these being done. When you're doing pulls, it's really important to make sure that you end up doing them with the same exact motor path and the same exact motion as you would the actual classic lift that it corresponds to. Now this is a good example of how I would want, or not, this is not a great example of how I want them done. And you can see where. I'll explain it as we go here. I'm fine with people using straps on pulls. That's totally fair. If you're doing a lot of reps, it's just a good way to save your hands. So she's doing fine at the top of the pull, but as she goes down, you can see her toes are kind of coming up off the floor. So she's leaning back. That one was the biggest example, where she was just falling over backwards and her balance was a little bit off. Those are supposed to be from below the knee, so I'd prefer that she lowered the bar to her knee and then bent her knees to get the bar lower. The same thing we're working on in the snatch, in the clean, we're also working on in the snatch. And that's catching the weight at the very bottom. It's a big deal for Alyssa to focus on receiving that bar low so she actually gets conscious and aware of where that balance belongs. The end of the week here, she just did a few singles. This is just preparing her body for some heavier lifts at the beginning of the next week. This is 75 kilos a few times. And then to save her shoulders, we've separated we've separated the clean and the jerk, so we're not doing tons of heavy snatching and jerking on the same day. This is just some block work on the clean. Again, volume for her. We're trying to bring the number of lifts up in the number of lifts per week up to in the 350 range right now. Her average intensity is hovering around 77% for 77 kilos for this work. No, I'm sorry, my bad. 77% of her snatch is about the average intensity. And again, just a volume kind of training session. This whole week was pretty moderate. And finally, the one thing we've been working on is her technique in the squats. We used to do a lot of high volume squatting with Alyssa, and it paid off a lot in the sense that she built leg strength up and some work capacity. But now it's really time to focus on positions. It's the one thing that's been holding her back in meets is her clean and jerk and her ability to maintain position when she receives the bar. You can see clearly these are awesome. Her knees stayed over her toes really well. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the series, a week in review. Go ahead and follow along, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're interested in more content like this, then check out jtsstrength.com and go ahead and subscribe. Thanks.